are very lucky because we get to talk to one of my fellow countrymen, Brent Sopel. It's pretty amazing that not only are you a celebrity hockey player, but you actually have developed a foundation and a cause, obviously, that we're passionate about. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started the Brent Sopel Foundation for Dyslexia about 3 years ago after I retired from the game of hockey and kind of figure out what my life was all about. And, it's here to educate the world on dyslexics, kind of what we go through and advocate and be there for, for parents and for kids that are struggling or for teachers, trying to change the world, but I'm trying to educate the world that, it's just a learning difference, not a learning disorder.
Can you, and I'm sure I've listened to a lot of your interviews. So can you just give us a little bit of a snapshot of your growing up in rural Canada, right? I mean, very different than growing up in Montreal. You're like the real Canada. And, obviously you're experiencing these challenges in the classroom. And it's clear to me there's a nexus to your success on the ice, because if you're not great at school and you show an aptitude in a sport, well, you're going to go where you feel good, right? You're reinforcing that good behavior. But can you tell me a little bit about what school looked like when you were a kid?
Yeah, school was awful. From kindergarten all the way up to grade 12 or seniors in high school, as the Americans like to say. It was awful. I was reading at a grade 4 level in high school. I struggled. It's not somewhere where I didn't want to be. It was 8 hours of just complete self-esteem beat down because I struggled at the simplest thing as reading. I didn't find out I was dyslexic till I was 33. So it was a grind every day. I was miserable. I was always acting out. I was just trying to get kicked out of class or, just doing anything. Because when you look at your peers left and right and you're not on the same level as them, no matter if you're in grade 4 or you're a junior or you're in grade 11, whatever that is, it sucks.
Yeah. No, and that's something I think people don't talk enough about. Dyslexia is now just beginning to be an accepted terminology, and there's still, I think to your point, so many people who don't know what it is. And it's the psychology of the child that is so fragile that dovetails into the remediation of someone who has language issues, because they may not know that they have this, but they know they don't feel good when they're in school with their peers. And that's a very, very, that's a lot of heartache for a parent to see.
100%. And, when I do talk about dyslexia, I just talk about the self-esteem, because that is the biggest thing. I don't care if you're a genius or you're a rocket scientist or what you are. If you don't have self-esteem, you've got nothing. You're going nowhere. And that's the biggest thing you talk about dyslexics. In my mind, I think it's less than 20% of the world actually really know what we go through on a daily basis and how we struggle and what internally, it feels. Most people think it's flipping your B's and D's, and there's a heck of a lot more that goes along with it. And the number one thing is that self-esteem.
Did you have a teacher, and I know this is a while back, but did you have that adult support in terms of your academic issues? Did you have that teacher that believed in you, or a family member that was like, this is going to be okay, you're going to get through this?
No. And, and I don't fault anybody, like I said, I just, 20% of the population now here in 2020, in my mind, knows what the word dyslexia means. Don't go back, 20, 30 years ago. Nobody knew what it was,
Right.
in Canada. So, and also being a hockey player, everybody just brushed me along. I did graduate high school, but my education probably doesn't take me past grade 8. But I was a Canadian, and you're going to play hockey, so they just kind of pushed me along. But no disrespect to any of those teachers. They just didn't know. They don't know now, so I can't blame them.
And then, you obviously finish your hockey career at such a successful point, right? Like you get the Stanley Cup. It's as great, I'm assuming, as great as a professional athlete could get. And then from a lot of, the interviews I've seen and I've read, you kind of have this moment where you say, it's not that great.
No, I was petrified of the real world my whole life. Like I said, when you struggle with the simplest things, and again, I went 33 years not knowing what it was.
Right.
And, I wouldn't have the scars that I have now if I would have known, when I was 10 years old or when I was 5 years old. There would have been a better understanding of what it was. Not, I literally just, the three words there: lazy, dumb, and stupid. You hear all the time from teachers and other kids. And that's what I thought it was. And, it took a toll on me when hockey ended. And there I'm staring the real world, entering the real world at 40 years old for the first time. And I'm like, now what?
Right. Right. And so, you kind of take a lot of, I think, your vulnerabilities and your frustration and turn it into something pretty special. So, the development of your foundation, if you could talk to us a little bit about, what are your aspirations, short-term, long-term?
Obviously short term is really to educate the world.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about something that's 1 in 5 and less than 20% of the population know exactly what it is, I always say I just don't want a kid to feel the way I do. I just, knowing that everything that's going on in 2020 with the e-learning, and it's hard enough for me to to focus on a computer, never mind a kid. I'm trying to figure out how to teach himself, because he's at home or she's at home, and the teacher's not there to help. So the short purpose is to really educate the world and know that it's okay to have it. And I always say to everybody who has, you're not alone. I'm right here with you, battling this with you, but it's just, we learn differently, and that is the biggest thing. And people just think that we're dumb, stupid, and lazy, but not. So short term is to educate that, but the long term is to change the education system and bringing some more laws, some more things across the United States and into Canada about legislation of how kids should be taught, and how can dyslexic kid maybe getting every single kid in kindergarten or grade 1 tested. Would change. 50% of the people in prison in the world have it. You change that number drastically if we got every kid diagnosed at a young age.
Right. It's interesting you say that, because there's such a causal nexus between dyslexia and felons. And there's a nexus between the amount of money you make and your comfort with language. It's not shocking to see that if you have a 3rd grade reading level, you're probably not going to be a very successful person in society when everything we do is based on language. There was just a very huge article, I think it was in The Atlantic, about the corollary between literacy and being a successful member of society. And the inverse is, if you're not comfortable with language, you're going to be exposed to opportunities that are probably not so great. And then bad decisions come from those poor opportunities, and it pretty much spirals into a very bad narrative.
Correct. I tell people all the time, if you're not good at math, you can do something. There's jobs there for you.
Right.
But if you can't read, there's nothing there. You can't go through a resume. Again, if you can't go for a resume, then you can't even go to the job process. So if you're bad at science, if you're bad at math, if you're bad at social, guess what? You're still okay. But the fact that with literacy and reading, not able to do a resume and everything to get to that point, where do you go? And I don't blame people. We'd be doing the same thing. If you can't read, you got to support yourself or your family any way you can, by any means. And,
right.
It's usually not good means, because you can't read.
Right. Well, I, for one, have been watching your journey, and I love it, because I do really think you have an amazing platform to help change people and to help change education policy, which is a long-term goal of BrainTrust. I mean, sure, we want to make those meaningful connections, and we want to get kids remediated early, because they can. But the blue sky position is to really help change education. You talk about doing assessments. Arkansas just passed something where they'll do assessments in K and 1. New York State has one of the worst literacy rates in the country. So when I sit back and look at the legislature and look at the policies that are brought up, I'm shocked. I am shocked at how behind we are in terms of integrating basic remediation to language in the schools. I think it's great. I want to thank you so much for your time. And of course, you and I are going to be speaking again many times, because I will harass you. But for everybody watching, please go to Brent Sopel's foundation. Check it out. He is changing the world. I think it's amazing. And we'll talk again soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jen.